So we live? Okay. Well, okay, okay. Either way, it's good.
So you want to go with a sports theme?
Well, I said since we come in a libation station, I probably don't need to go dressed
Little
up.
Catholic. Little
I said to the wife, I said, hey, what if I put this on to that? She said, yeah, okay. I said, all right. And then I figured, I said, he might go dressed up from the last one. Let me let him know what I'm about to wear.
No, it was right on time. I mean, you spend all day
in suits, tie, shirt, in the different meetings that you go into,
Mhm,
different stuff
mhm.
that you're doing. You want to go to people's homes.
presentable. So it's refreshing to be able to come out, t-shirt and say, "Hey, let's go."
Well, when we first talked about this, the intent was to go around and show the different stores, businesses that were in the city. So when people watch it, they're not only hopefully getting information on.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us at Real Talk, our second episode with Mayor Wallace. I want to thank all of you for joining us right now. I want to thank our lovely host for hosting this for us at Libation Station. And we thank Alex for videoing this particular episode.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot for
putting everything together, make it look good, nice and
Yeah,
sexy,
yeah.
right? Nice and sexy.
Make it look real good, real good. Well, I tell you what, it's good to be able to sit here with the Honorable Dr. Larry Wallace Jr. And I want you guys to know that this is a very good man. He is gracious enough to pull me in to answer some of the harder questions that maybe the community has had, some of the conversations I've had with the community over the month. And we're going to pose some of those questions to him and just see if he squirms a little bit. Watch it, see if he flinches. I want y'all to watch and see if he flinches.
I was thinking I told you this, I was thinking over the whole week. I'm like, man, I wonder what he's going to ask. And so I don't know what he's going to ask me. And that's the number one policy I put in doing this was do not let me know what questions you're going to ask me.
Right.
So that way I don't have an opportunity to prep what I'm going to say, script what I'm going to say, or get ready to, when I hear the question, be able to make sure my true emotions don't come out.
Yeah,
So I heard you got some good ones for me today.
Well, and just so that the people know, because I had some conversation the other day about giving them topics and things like that. And I want the folks to know that all month long, as I'm posting to social media and even walking through the community, I'm talking to people. And I write down the things that people are interested in. I literally write them down. If I'm not in a place where I have a pen and paper, I'll remember it and I'll write it down when I get back to my desk. So when I ask questions, especially social media, Facebook, and those groups and things like that, if you have questions that you want the mayor to answer, or even some of the city council members, I will pick those questions, put those questions right down on my pad, and bring them right here. He'll have to answer them. City council folks have to answer them. School board people have to answer them. So you guys, if you ever thought I don't want to answer, or I'm just going to lay silent, then your questions will never get put out there. But because I pick my questions from your responses to the questions that I have.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you opened it up to something we talked about before with this Real Talk series. Is you have one with me as the mayor, but that it's opened up to other elected or public officials that want to be able to address and answer questions directly with the community. It doesn't just have to be real talk with Mayor Wallace all the time.
Right.
It could be real talk with one of the council members, real talk with one of the school board members,
Absolutely.
or real talk with the superintendent or city manager. So this is why it's part of the Mayor's Community Collaborative to open that dialogue and communication in a way that we can do in regular stated business meetings.
Yes. So today, I wanted you to open up with something that I saw from you, as a matter of fact, which was the order of precedence of the United States of America. I had to say that like that. I want you to explain that from the mayor's perspective concerning the mayoral duties. And I'll say it this way. The importance of the job of being mayor. Those are my words. I want y'all to know those are my words, not his. He wants to downplay it, but I want to say it like that.
I would say not necessarily the importance of the mayor, right? Because when you look at the order of precedence, you're talking about anywhere, I think it was 200 people on that list.
Yeah.
And there's certain protocols that we do and we don't do here in the city of Manor, right? It's never really had to come to that. And what that order of precedence really is governance and how the White House has determined what the order rank structure is in presidents, from the president all the way down. And that is also how it operates within national government, state government, county, so forth. So when you're talking about who potentially outranks who, or who has a heavier voice than others, that's where it's at. The president has a heavier voice than the governor. The governor has a heavier voice than the lieutenant governor. So within the order of precedence, the mayor within their own city ranks number 27 on that whole list. Outside of their city, they rank number 37.
Yeah.
What most people don't probably look on that list is that 27 in your own city, that means you're under the governor, lieutenant governor, the senator in Congress, in the House of Rep in Congress. Then it's the mayor, number 5. Not House, State House senator, not State House Rep, not county judge, not precinct commissioner.
Federal,
right?
local.
It goes federal, local. And that's key to know. Because if you don't understand the governance role, the governance protocol, the governance level of authority and influence that you have, then you could potentially be leaving resources, access, contacts, right? Advocating for the city that you oversee. Here's another example. The mayor of a city outranks the second 4-star in charge of every service branch. Wow. So the deputy chief of the Army, the mayor outranks that individual. So for someone to not know that the level of influence that they have to be able to pick up the phone and call someone, to shoot an email and inquire about something, right? To talk with TxDOT, RMA, Regional Mobility Authority, to help provide resources to the school district, right? Then that's a loss to the city in itself by not knowing it. And that was day one, what I pushed to council, to city hall, to the school district board and leadership and said, look, this is how I'm going to be operating, understanding the role, understanding the weight of the role. And it's time to go to work and it's time to exercise that.
That's important. I mean, essentially, being a military guy, you just gave yourself a promotion, right?
you know what's funny? so this is what's funny, right? So when I was a council member working at University of Texas System, my boss was a 2-star.
Okay.
Army Futures Command was across the hall, right? And this councilman such such, this councilman such such, Dr. Wallace, Dr. Wallace, Dr. Wallace. And then I became mayor, sir. My old bosses, sir, and so it took me a while to figure out why that change happened. And then when I came across the order of precedence, then I was like, got it, understand, but it's interesting, and it takes some time to get used to it. But again, it's all about understanding that role and how to use it properly to the benefit of the city, and not probably what most people see when they talk about politics and politicians to your own individual benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, okay, you just established it. Mayor is on top in Manor, and being what it is, I want to ask you this about some of the social unrest that you may see, especially as it pertains to the city council, and maybe even the entire government, city government as a whole. Have you or are you considering having some diversity training for your city council and your entire office, so that decisions are being made by your city council, not just representing the demographic that they represent, but the demographic of Manor as a whole?
Right. I think there's a piece of, are you talking about this training to have the training, or are you actually putting in systems and processes to have diversity and inclusion? And the reason I say the two are exclusively different is, we've had suicide prevention in most organizations you're in. You have all this training that's supposed to happen.
Right.
And when it really is time to actually exercise that training, you go blank.
Yeah.
You fall to your natural because it was this check the block to say you did it. We haven't necessarily implemented training. What we've implemented are committees that provide that equity, diversity, and inclusion from the community, right? The appointed presidents for the Mayor's Community Collaborative, the appointed presidents for each HOA, they selected their president. The presidents of the different local groups, whether it's the chamber, whether it's the Lions Club, the Manor Men and Women, the Schoolhouse Foundation, they selected, based upon who they take care of or who they support, they elected their president. That president has a seat at the table with me and anybody else that needs to be in the room to have that open dialogue, right? You have the Citizens Police Advisory Committee, right, where Chief has gone out and selected individuals to represent the community and talking with him directly. We have the Economics Development Committee, where we grab people both that are ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction, as well as the city limits, to represent, individuals like Monique Celadon and Miss Haley, who have been real estate for 20, 30 years and have credentials in real estate, but here in Manor as well, to people that have been the former Texas economic president and the international economic president that's on our board, that's on the committee to provide. So there's diversity and inclusion in that aspect because we don't know it all. You will hear from City Hall and Council say, especially with this growth and the economic development stuff, we don't know it all. And so we have to. It's not a sense of being forced. We're smart enough to know we have to have that diversity.
Absolutely you do, especially in this day and time, post. Not even post pandemic. We're still in it.
2021, baby.
We still in it, and so at this time, everybody has to be racially sensitive. Everybody has to be socially sensitive. To the demographics that the city represents. There's all kind of people out there, and they want to know that their voice is being heard.
I think a piece that you bring up here too is, where's the diversity on council? And there's discussions of, should we go down into districts? Well, we're too small of a city to go into districts. You'd be talking about one council member would be representing maybe 1,500 people, but districts also have budgets that go with them and so forth, right? So do you really want one person only having to care for 1,500 people and not the rest of the residents in the city? When everybody's still using the same resources. We're not big to where a district has its own different types of resources in it, right?
Right.
And then, the other piece is, well, how about we have representation, one seat is for, Old Manor, or one seat is for ETJ and stuff like that, right? Well, all city decisions are based on city taxes. We don't receive taxes from Shadow Glen, Briar Creek, or Presidential Meadows. So unfortunately, by law, to allow them to make decisions on tax received money, and they're not providing revenue to the city, right? They're using the resources, and they're using, so input, we have to build these different committees, the diversity and inclusion, to get the input, but unfortunately, those that are actually putting revenue into the city through taxes are the ones that have votes.
Yes.
And until Shadow Glen gets rid of its $100 million debt, then it's asking a city to take on someone else's debt so they can vote, right? And so it becomes, where does business versus the ability to do something disperse? And as much as we want to have their vote, and as much as we're looking in to be able to have that vote, again, if the city's working off a $750,000 deficit this year and not raising taxes, right, and not raising the ad valorem tax, then how are we going to take on a $100 million debt?
Absolutely.
And we have to make sure, if we take on that $100 million debt, does the revenue generated from Shadow Glen and them break even? Or is there a profit, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a business. But when you're talking about representation on council, again, who's running? If you don't have someone representing you or your particular place in the city, then you need to get someone to run. Back them in running. Help them and assist them in their campaign. Help raise the money. To be able to carve off one seat for a particular group that is not wanting to run, is not advocating or pushing for someone to represent them, right? Then it's almost, how does that potentially become a deficit or a hindrance to the city overall? When you start making decisions for individuals that are not running themselves to be in office, right? And you see that even in the school district, you see that even in the healthcare, where if you make a business decision based upon someone asking for something versus showing the data and so forth, you start making wrong decisions. You start doing things through favoritism versus keeping it as neutral and across the board equal as possible.
That's right.
The people that are on council, whether it's turning more minority than it has been in the past, more forward economic growth than it has in the past, is because they ran for office.
I mean, excuse me, what you're saying and about Shadow Glen and those, because I've had conversations with people who live in Shadow Glen wanting to know how come they can only vote for school board but can't vote for the city candidates, city council candidates, and so the way you just explained it explains it to them perfectly well. I'm sure they needed to hear that. I'm positive they needed to hear that.
We say it quite a bit. but I get it. As many new people are moving in, they don't know these things, and we've talked about, even amongst council, how do we establish a frequently asked questions page or white papers or information page for these frequent questions that are always being asked, like the HEB, right? They got their own business. Their 5-year window of building doesn't end until 2022.
I trying to have 100 of those a week.
Right. So trying to get them to do something that's not planned within their business model right now is hard. So it's how do we provide that information versus always having to restate it, and we take our eye off the ball of growth.
Yeah.
The other conversations we have to have, right?
Absolutely. So with you being mayor and in an election year like this, it's hard not to be in an election year with you guys every 2 years, right? So it's kind of hard not to be in an election year. But this year is going to be record setting.
How so?
It's a presidential election.
Okay.
Two popular candidates running for president, and with the nation being so divided as to who they would want to vote for, you got to be expecting plenty of people coming to the polls. Now I know that's basically county that's responsible for that, but what are you doing at a city level to assist them in making sure that mail-in votes are counted and safe, and or going to the polls is safe,
right?
To give them the confidence that it's okay,
right? One really look into what are the different messages that are going on. The last mayors and county judge call that we had, and we have one bi-weekly. I think I said that last time too. So we had it last Wednesday, and they're looking at doing messaging and pushing the message out of voting and where to vote at and so forth, and having a dialogue with them and saying, hey, it's great to push it out of the county, but you have to dialogue and engage and do it collaboratively with the local levels. Because if it doesn't have a local level face or presence to it, then it's going to get sanitized by whoever's watching it, right? We signed on through one of the mayor's pledges when we all vote, and it gives us information on the status of unregistered voters, the demographic population of those that are unregistered, and trying to use that in a way of saying, all right, if you think it's the 18 to 24, well, it's not. It's the older categories. So how do you better target who really needs to be registered to vote, right? Is it the African Americans, the Hispanics, whatever? And I posted that a couple of times to show, all right, you may think it's one population or one demographic or one age group. Here's the facts. That's the population you need to go after to get them registered so they can be able to vote. I think the other big piece of what you're talking about, at least on the national level, is do we want to have what happened last time where a lot of the nation assumed one person was going to win so they didn't show up to vote? Right? We have to learn from that and say, regardless of what side you're going for, you just can't assume one's going to win or the other one's not going to win based upon the trends and attitudes of the community, right? Especially maybe even the nation. You have to get out and vote, because if you don't, what if a lot of other people are thinking the same way?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's an upset. It doesn't go the way you want. I'd rather everybody go and vote and the person that they wanted didn't get in than you didn't go vote and the person you didn't want got in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you have, we have those people that are voting in this year's election. Obviously, last election, when you won as mayor, there was about 280 people.
Yeah, about 250 to 500, yeah.
Right? This year, you have to at least be expecting 3 times as much.
You would hope.
Well,
you would hope.
Folks are, they'll come out for a national election, but in that we're gonna slip them in the local on the ballot, right? But here's my question: with Shadow Glen only able to vote on school board, do they have to do it in 2 separate locations?
We're going to end up having our one. I don't know where that one location is going to be yet. I don't know. It may have already been identified. I just don't know. We usually have one location here within the city of Manor, which is usually the administrative building.
Right.
I know for the May elections, it was over at Lagos instead of the administration building. So I'm not sure where it's going to be at. But no, you go vote at the one place, and it's going to have all the people that you're eligible to vote for on that ballot.
Okay, yeah, I wondered that myself, because they're only able to vote for school board, and will they have to go vote someplace else?
No, because we had people that came from Elgin, people that came from Austin that came to the administrative building to vote, and some would be like, hey, I didn't see your name on there, and I was going to vote for you. Like, well, where you out of? Well, Elgin. I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I wasn't on there.
You voted for Elgin?
Right. So it pulls up where you're at. The whole new electronic piece, it pulls up where you're at, who you're eligible to vote for.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm sure that's good to know for our viewers that are watching. So switching to pandemic, COVID-19, what was or is the best thing you've learned out of the pandemic to help you in your job as mayor?
The best thing I've learned,
or number one thing?
I think confidence. Confidence.
Confident.
Anytime you go into a new role, you bring certain things to the table. You just don't know fully how impactful that could potentially be.
Yeah.
I've been in previous leadership positions. I've had to make hard decisions before, some life-altering for people, not necessarily deformed or anything, but life-altering as far as kicked out the military or losing rank, and it puts a hardship on their family, or as I said before, banning someone from coming on the military installation overseas when we're not even in America. But in this sense, when I first got in the seat and we're dialoguing with other elected officials across the county, I'm the newbie.
Yeah.
I'm the young guy. And I think Councilwoman Natasha Harper and Councilman Rudy Matera were all laughing, even State Representative Cheryl Cole and County Commissioner Jeffrey Trevilian. So we're on I remember early on, they're like, you need to do this, and this is this, and have you talked to this? I'm like, man, I don't know none of that. I don't know none of that, right? You know this, but I don't know them. Like, I just got in the game.
They name dropping like
I haven't been around the block. Like, are you tracking this proposal? Are you tracking this? I'm like, I don't even know about them. Like, I'm not even on the email distro. Right? So it was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But then it came to a point where you see the unfortunate piece of COVID-19 is where real leadership had to come to the front.
Yeah.
And so now, like, we're talking with Central Health about equity, diversity, inclusion, right? Not just in representation in their leadership levels, but even in their service across the county. And so we're talking, and I said, hey, I'm probably going to be the most blunt one, and they all dropped the dime on me. They're like, yep.
Yep.
So, but that's, I think, where the dynamic changes, because I found me in how I needed to best exercise this role.
Good.
And what was needed, one, internally for the city, but then for the Eastern Crescent, for the county, and then this advocacy for minorities in general. And, the COVID-19 situation allowed me to cut through the chase of a lot of the political fluff.
Yeah.
And be able to say, nah, I heard what you said, but that's bull, that's BS,
Right.
And I'm asking this question. That answer had nothing to do with what I asked.
Yeah. And see, folks need somebody at that table to be able to talk up for them at that table. And that's essentially what you're saying, you grew into, because there's specific things that Maynard needs that may not work in Pflugerville or Round Rock, wherever, but there's specific things that Maynard needs.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about. I ain't talking about what y'all about to spread across everything else. This is what we need.
And I think that carried over to even conversations here when people call or want to talk about, we're looking at trying to bring something here, and what do you think we should need? I'm like, well, we need, some stores, or we need, facilities for the kids, or we need, some type of entertainment place. I'm like, well, what about elderly stuff? I'm like, we already got one building up and another one building over here, and it gives me the confidence to be able to be a little bit more straightforward and clear and be like, look, this is what we need. I appreciate you calling, but we already got a lot of that.
Yeah.
And you can go call someone else, but just know, because of how I engage and how I operate, they're going to say, no, if he said that's what he needs, then that's what he needs. He's not playing around.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I told one individual You know, hey, what about if we come present and talk at council? I'm like, cool, but just talk about this, talk about that, because we do not necessarily really care about the other stuff because we already have that stuff going on. So if you stay to these things, you will keep us interested. If you start talking here, that's not where we're going. We've already agreed to that and put things in place. We're not going that way. So I think a lot of times before it was just being nice, listening to people, let them talk, and not following through on things versus letting them know what we really need, what we really want, and what we're not even interested in.
Absolutely. When you, before the pandemic hit and you took office, Manor was trending about 1% better than the nation in unemployment rate. Since the pandemic, has that changed any?
I do not know off the top of my head. I don't know those stats. What I can tell you is one is good and one is bad.
Yeah.
The good piece is the information I do receive says that because most of our employees are business owners, and sales have gone up almost 24% during COVID. Others are essential workers in healthcare or some other aspect, so they're needed, right? Not a lot of people have applied for the different grants, the different programs that the county has put out there, right? Nor, again, the information we received, not that many people missing utility payments and stuff like that. Here's the bad piece of it. We don't have a lot of great data. Entities and organizations that we would normally rely on to provide that stuff hasn't necessarily had to really structurally design internally to be able to do that, right? So a lot of times, if I'm going out and I'm talking to different entities and organizations, whether it's the Austin Area Urban League, the African American Harvest Foundation, even Dell and other entities, their question is always, what is needed, where is it needed, how is it needed? And the hardest thing that we have to say as City Hall and Council is, we believe it's needed here, but we don't have the data to validate that.
That's important. You need the data. As we just expressed, Manor does good with the unemployment rate. People in Manor work. They're hardworking people. However, there is a bad piece to that because the poverty level, the poverty rate of Manor is trending about 6% worse than the nation.
So, and I have to push back a little bit on that one.
Okay.
Right? And I know me and my fellow council members, we go back and forth on this one. And again, it's data. The zip code for Manor is bigger than Manor.
Yeah.
The zip code includes D1 of Austin, parts of Pflugerville, county. And so we get lumped into what the income, what the housing and all that stuff is for there. So we don't really know what the real income, what the real status is of City of Manor. You see that even with COVID-19 when you're talking about testing.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a question about
and
that.
And they always want to say, oh my gosh, you got, be like, yeah, but 78653 is way bigger than the city of Manor is only 17 miles. Do 17 miles compared to the 78653 zip code.
Yeah.
Right? And so in some aspects it's great, but in other aspects it can also be a false information, false data, false information.
Yeah. Okay. Even if people do a simple Google search, it's not as easy to pick it up on Google. You really got to put some numbers together and do your math.
Yeah, and that's where we're having those conversations again through the mayors and county judge call to be able to say, all right, when are you going to get to a level where you can actually tell me by actual limits testing those that have recovered, hospitalized by actual limits and not just the zip code, because we're not the only city. All the other smaller cities are like Lakeways like that, you know, where they have that issue of we can't really provide resources and support and systems because we may not really need it within our limits.
I got you. With the pandemic, sticking with the pandemic, what are you doing at the city level to boost consumer confidence that folks may not be afraid to come out and enjoy themselves, you know, like they once did? Now I know people do. You know, the businesses are booming right now, but it mainly because of delivery, takeout, you know, things like that. But how do we get the streets of Manor or the people of Manor to have the confidence that it's safe?
You know, that goes probably hand in hand with getting parents comfortable with kids going back into school.
Yeah.
The frustrating piece of it all is at the state level, it has gone to ownership on adhering to what needs to occur being on the individual, right? Business owners are the ones that have to enforce things. Well, if I'm busy trying to run my business, and naturally over time we get complacent, am I sure that things are being wiped off as they should be? Am I ensuring that things are being recycled, a new product is being put out as it should be? You know, that's probably why a lot of people are not going to the movie theaters. Do I really know if they wiping down the seats after every movie theater?
Seriously.
So you're putting the ownership on someone, which becomes an additional task or additional job. And at the end of the day, we all get complacent. We all stop doing certain things that we normally did. And so then it comes a thing of, does that business now have enough money to hire someone just to do that? Do they have enough money to buy recyclable menus and utensils? We've looked at things as far as face guards and how can we support our small businesses that don't have the corporate backing, right? There's things we want to do, especially with CARES Act money, but there's so much red tape. We've submitted numerous times over the past 2 months back and forth with county, and we still don't have a program yet. And so it's how do we, the money that's been allocated to us, get something that can be done to help locally? The best thing that can happen is the people going into the stores do what they need to do. And you can read on Facebook all the time people that purposely don't wear their mask, and then they high five each other on Facebook about going somewhere and not wearing a mask and nobody telling them something. You know, to, you know, store owners. There was the one in Elgin that, you know, purposely said, you know, do whatever you want to do. You know, so it's, when you put it down to the individuals, you don't know what the individuals are going to do.
That's what I mean. You know, when we're talking about oversight at the city level, to make sure that businesses are complying with CDC regulations, I would imagine it would get kind of difficult to actually monitor the businesses at the city level.
You know, you're talking about picking your battles. We only have roughly about 20 people on the force, and those are still split up in a day shift and a night shift. Right? Not all 20 are actual patrol officers. You're talking about crime lab area, you know, animal area and all that stuff. So, you know, what looks big on paper, in actuality, may not be big. Right? So, again, if you're talking about people that are already doing 2 or 3 different tasks, and you see that even with school teachers, right? They are trying to teach their class, but then they're trying to make sure their kids are getting zoomed into class. And then they may have an infant that wants their attention to stuff, right? So again, you know, do you think they're going to be thinking to check the temperatures of the kids and all that stuff before they go drop them off? We don't know, right? When you put the ownership on someone and you don't really understand the resources, the plate that may already be full, right? And everybody has a different level of attention, a different level of care, a different level of financial capability, right? When a organization or entity, that responsibility is taken off the organization or the entity and put on individuals that have all different types of scales, something's prone to happen.
Something that should probably be discussed is your role in bringing commerce to Manor. I'll just say it. How much time do you expend bringing commerce to Manor? And I'm asking this question because you see a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people that talk about the taxes are high and things like that. And the only time taxes can get lower is by bringing in shops and businesses, and commerce is actually happening, and money is exchanging hands from consumers to business owners, and business owners then pay taxes to the city. So how much of your time is spent rectifying that issue?
Probably, well, it was right behind transportation, and I think we're at a certain point now in transportation that it's just now updates. So probably up among number one now of my focuses. And you've seen within the last month, 2 months, a lot of economic stuff has been done by the city. And regardless of what anybody feels about the 2050 comprehensive plan, right?
Right.
Created an economic development committee to get feedback in. Council approved the economic office that's currently going through the budget process to see and build a duty description and all this other stuff, right? Within Proposition N of the 20 propositions going to ballot is to create, it said in the charter that city shall. Shall means can or cannot.
Right.
Right? Shall means it's up to my decision.
That's right.
It says shall create a development committee. We changed it to will.
Right.
And so once that hopefully gets voted in, then it's we now have to create one.
Must do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at an economic office, economics development committee, a development department, the 2050 comprehensive plan, right? Quarterly meetings with the Regional Mobility Authority, Texas Department of Transportation, Capital Metro, and the Capital Area Metropolitan Organization, just regarding 973, 290 Lexington on a quarterly basis. So it's all really economic focus as far as getting the structures and systems in place so we're not doing things off of a whim. The biggest change out of everything that is within the 2050 comprehensive plan, executing that, and the charter recommendations is getting away from council administrations deciding where they want things to go.
Yeah.
Because I can have a vision to go this way, and it could be what the city wants, or it could be what the city doesn't want. And then when the new mayor comes in, and if they woo the council, then they can have it go a different way.
Right.
And so we do not have anything in place by a comprehensive plan that says this is what the community has voted on as far as what they want the council to work on right now for the next 3 to 5, what they would like to see in 10, and where they would like to see the city go in 30. Tweakable, but what type of city would they love to have in 30 years, right? The appeal, the feel. When you say the city of Manor, what do you want to be associated with it in 30 years?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what that is for. And then you're talking about, again, okay, it's great to have this comprehensive plan, but unless, and this is the difference between a resolution says we support this. An ordinance is basically a local law council puts in place, says we're going to start operating this way.
Yeah.
And then charter, that's the people saying, no, you're going to operate this way.
This is what I want.
This is what I want. And so when you look at 20, and I got charter Q&As coming up in October before the early and the regular election, but when you look at those propositions, it is everything that council has done this year, those propositions solidify and make it permanent that that's how future administrations are supposed to operate. the economic committee that we've never had, the development committee we've never had, going and trying to brand the city that we've never had, trying to figure out how to revitalize downtown like we've never had. They are all, it will happen.
Yeah,
these offices will be created.
Yeah.
So don't read it if you don't want to, but when you don't vote and put them in,
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Speaking of propositions, let's go to the popular one. Let's not leave out Proposition E. Good old Proposition E. For those people out there that are listening to us right now that have some reservations about paying the mayor and the city council.
Yeah.
You
know the interesting thing about that? I got these two things to say. I'm gonna speak more on two, but I got two things to say. The interesting things about that is, one, it wouldn't go into effect until end of 2021. Mm-hmm. This is the second piece of that. I might not be in office, so I wouldn't benefit from it. Okay. The ones that went in office with me, if they don't run again or they don't get elected, if I didn't get elected, we don't benefit from it, right?
You're talking about election season 2021.
2021.
Right.
Because if it gets approved now, they're going to have to work it into the budget, right? Budget lines and all the other stuff. It wouldn't go, and you hear that even in our previous council meetings when we talked about it. It would not be effective until end of 2021. So that means those of us in term right now potentially may never ever benefit from it. Now, the compensation piece is a piece of, or it's tied to the terms, and saying going from 2 years to 4 years, right?
Proposition B.
Proposition B, and saying, all right, one, we're recommending 4 years because it's going to take almost 3 months to get on board, just to figure out what needs to happen, right? 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It took me almost 3 months just to meet new people that I needed to meet. 6 months before I really started being able to implement things. And then you're talking about at the last 6 months, I'm now starting to focus on re-election. Right? And unless I'm skilled, I'm not going to be able to do both, right, impactfully, because there's a lot of different committees. There's way more committees now than we had last year.
Yeah.
There's way more involvement going on now than we had last year.
There is.
So you're really talking about a year and maybe 3 months. You might have someone fully focused just on city stuff, but they're not even learning how to represent the city. They're just learning how to sit in a meeting and understand what a public improvement district is and a municipality utilities district and stuff, right? By the time they learn the history of the HEB and the library and the roads and all that stuff, right? It's time to rerun and maybe not even win. Now, the other piece of it is, if you have a boss that's only going to be there for 2 years and may not stay again, how much are you really going to listen to them when they're telling you to do this or telling you we need to do that? You're going to be like, I'm just going to wait you out and see if you're going to be here. So you're talking again, building further credibility and relationships between council and city hall itself.
Right.
They're the continuity piece, right? Third piece of it is, if I'm outside the city of Manor, I'm a state rep, I'm a U.S. rep, I'm the governor's office, I'm the county, I'm Dell, I'm a university, I'm another big business. I'm going to get tired of having to learn a new person every 2 years.
Who's a new guy, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Me and you already started working on something. You're like, hey, man, I didn't win my election. There's a new person coming in.
What happened to Wallace?
Right?
Yeah.
And so what you're talking about is building some type of continuity to really allow someone to learn the ins and the outs, not just to make a motion and approve or disapprove something, but to advocate and start building relationships and potential programs, pilots, whatever it may be on behalf of the city. Now you turn it to if I'm doing it from a purely voluntary capacity, and this is where our thought process was, this is where City Hall's process, this is where the Charter Committee's process was on all this, right? A volunteer, at the end of the day, a volunteer is a volunteer. You can't tell a volunteer what to do if they don't want to do it.
This is true.
I don't care if they are a public official. Good example would be that the whole COVID-19 situation happened. It says that, within the COVID-19 situation, it says that we can meet in person, right? Mm-hmm. You can't make me meet in person if I don't want to, if I'm a volunteer. You can't say, why am I not going out to these meetings? Why am I not going out to these events? Why am I not traveling somewhere, networking? I don't want to, right? My only obligation as a volunteer is to show up to the meetings and vote. I don't even have to read the packet if I don't want to, right? Mm-hmm. So it's how do the residents create some type of ownership, accountability to where we can say, you're getting this, so we expect these things to happen. They don't have to go on a committee if they don't want to. Right? So it really boils down to is how do you create more ownership, more structures and systems to get out of City Hall, your elected officials, that you want and what is needed for the city to go where it needs to go.
So just to be clear, because I feel the people out there, they squirm and they like, oh, how he just danced away from Proposition E and went to B.
Look, I said this before. $75 for two meetings per month, $150 or $300. So I'm bad at math. So 300 times 12 months is $3,600, right? $3,600 per year, right? For the mayor. 1,300, right? So I don't know. I'm bad at math. Half that for council, right? Yeah. Now what happens? Right now I'm getting disability pay. I'm getting compensation pay from the military. That allows me to step away from a paying job because there's things that actually need to happen right now in the city.
Yeah.
Right? The next person that comes in may not have that gumption, may not have that drive or that desire. When that big job comes in or something else that's paying them, what is, I get it, $3,600 is still big by tax dollars,
sure, from
taxpayers' money, but it's still not big enough to have someone go above and beyond what they would naturally want to do. Especially
or what the job now calls for.
Or what the job now calls for. And so in a sense here, now you're able to say, since you're getting some type of taxpayer dollars, we expect you to be doing these things. Because someone can message me, email me, or whatever, right? I don't have to answer them. I don't have to respond, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have no office hours.
Yeah.
I don't have an office. Mm-hmm. So everything I'm doing from the house. I'm doing from in the front yard, the backyard, somebody else's place, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of a piece of, if you want me to not only put true effort in during the 2 years, if you see the realization of the benefit of 3 or 4 years, and you want me to put the same gumption in through those whole 4 years, right? At some point, just being a volunteer is going to die out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can look at some of the progress you've made coming in, even setting up all the committees. Technically, actually, should a new mayor come in next year, to 2022, it will be hard for that new person to come in and do what it is that you've already set up, if they're not willing to go above and beyond.
I think the other piece too is it would be hard for them to be able to back off of a job they may have, a business they may own that's bringing some money in, if they don't have a little bit of something coming in somewhere else. Or even for the wife and the kids or the spouse and kids that they have to be able to say, I know I'm reducing getting $10,000, $15,000 a year because I need to do more in this job. At least I'm bringing a little bit in here versus why am I stepping away from this even though I obligated and I swore in to do this? Yeah, I got to feed the mouse first.
Yeah.
It helps in enabling that person to further justify to the people that they support that even though it's not giving them everything they may need, the community is at least trying to give them something to keep that focus, to keep that drive.
Yeah.
To keep that
if they appreciate the drive,
yeah,
if they appreciate the focus. Because you have some folks out there that say, well, instead of giving him $3,600 a year, You know, we didn't ask him to quit his job. He ran for a volunteer position. So if he now all of a sudden wants to get paid or realize that he needs some money from something, why don't he just resign as mayor and go ahead and pursue his personal life?
Yeah, and I'll say this on a closing note, that it's not about me. It's about who you gonna get after me, and how you enticing people that may have the skills, the knowledge, the work capacity of what you want and what you need, that are gonna say, I would love to do it, but I can't walk away from this. I can't give that up just to volunteer, right? It's showing from a commitment piece that we know we're asking you to do a lot of things, and a lot of things we're gonna hound you on, but we at least understand we can't give you the nice big salary because we're not a big city like that or whatever it may be, but we understand what we expect you to do. Therefore, we're going to at least give you something, because now where the city is at and where the city has to continue to go is way more complex and needing than it has been in previous years.
It's not a complacent city. It's growing. It's growing. And I'll give the numbers to the people because I know them. The average salary for a mayor in Texas is $173,000. Okay, folks, you heard it. It's $173,000 for a mayor's salary in the state of Texas. Now, Houston might get $400,000, or Dallas might get, $250,000, whatever.
But you got the San Antonio mayor gets 81, Adler gets 86, Dallas mayor gets 84, Houston gets 233.
See.
And then you look at Elgin, Pflugerville, and Round Rock, Cedar Park. They usually get the around the amount we're talking about, even here for Manor, which is anywhere from $15 to $50, or $100 per meeting.
Right.
So go back to the charter committee meeting, joint meeting, even with council, where we went in depth on comparisons of who they compared, what cities, what was being paid, at least in something. When did they start doing it? Why did they start doing it? And the growth of the cities, either before and after they started doing it, to determine what was in the best interest. Yeah. Again, this wasn't a thing where it was just council or it was just me. This was across the board, and you'll see everybody from the charter committee, old Manor, new Manor, everybody Manor represented.
Yeah.
Across the board agrees something should happen to have further enticement and ownership on your elected officials.
Yeah, and that's just the way it is. So we'll end on this note. Re-election 2021. You running?
Re-election 2021. I'm seeing more things that may require me to stay on.
All right, I like that.
I will tell you this though.
Yeah.
Election this year will tell me whether or not the city wants to go where I'm trying to take it.
All right. You heard it here, folks. Real talk with the Honorable Dr. Larry Wallace Jr. I thank y'all for tuning in. Thank our lovely host at Libation Station. Thank you, Alex, for videoing this session. And thank you, Mayor Wallace.
Anytime.
I certainly appreciate you being with me today.
Anytime.
You all have a good night. Thank you for joining us.